Hello and welcome to New Game Plus. My name is Donald and I'm joined this week by Megs. How are you?
I'm excellent, but I forgot my party hat this week, Donald.
It's
the worst feeling ever.
And I'm wearing mine here and everything too. God, because it is going to be the 20th anniversary of the release
celebrating, guys. It's
of
massive.
StarCraft. Yeah,
I feel a little bit old, but we're gonna get there. You know, we'll get over it.
Yes, the memories go way, way back. It's ode to nostalgia. What are your memories of the StarCraft franchise?
Well, 20 years on, I think, yeah, my fondest memories of StarCraft 2 is it was one of my first ever midnight launches that I worked for a certain video game retailer, and it's got some fun memories in my heart, playing with friends on LAN weekends, just for days at a time. Cannot create more units. Super exciting. Yeah, I have PTSD, but it's really exciting. How about you?
I remember furiously cheating through the single player campaign of StarCraft because I was not a good RTS person. I'm still not a good RTS person, but boy howdy, could I research and input in cheat codes. So infinite resources,
It doesn't surprise me. You're the type of guy.
invulnerability, trying to find out game the system, and just playing through the story. And there are some really fun memories of that as well. And I'm sure you at home, the viewer, would have so many more too.
Honestly, one of the biggest things I love about Blizzard is how everyone that plays all their franchises benefits from special anniversaries like this with in-game content across all franchises.
Blizzard do love their synergy. So Overwatch players can get a Kerrigan skin for Widowmaker. World of Warcraft players can get some salutes and some pets. Hearthstone players can get 3 packs of the current sets.
That's it. And if you haven't played StarCraft yet, you can play it for free. Just download it online. But this episode is so jam-packed. What do you think?
So much so that this is all we can spend talking about StarCraft. It's just got too many other games to talk about.
What's up? Well, stay tuned for Final Fantasy 15 review.
We also look at Kingdom Come Deliverance and decide whether it does come to the kingdom. I was going somewhere there.
Donald also has an esports chat on the level.
Yes, and we've got that and plenty more coming up this episode. But first, Final Fantasy 15.
Enjoy.
So Kingdom Come Deliverance actually came out of nowhere. I saw some of the trailers and I was really, really hyped for it because I was thinking, oh, this looks like kind of like a Witcher game, but more set in kind of reality. It's very much heavy swordplay combat, maybe less magic and stuff. And then I jumped into the combat and I was slightly kind of disillusioned because it's basically Skyrim. That said, disclaimer, I didn't really like Skyrim, but I brought on Jason.
So, okay, I played 130 hours of Skyrim, hated it, right? I still say it to this day. Skyrim's the worst Elder Scrolls game, still played 130 hours of it, right? So there's something to be said for I'm just going to muck around, do that kind of shit. And I think it's fine, you know what I mean? The reason I was interested in Kingdom Come was the exact same thing you said. It's no magic. There's a couple of spells which kind of blur the lines.
Yeah, there's like potions and stuff.
Yeah,
that kind of blur
yeah.
lines, but
but that's alchemy. That's different.
All right.
But it's set in feudal kind of Hungary. It's this interesting actual microcosm of that period in time, 14th century, is it, or something like that?
It's the not
just before the plague, isn't it?
Yeah, basically I think just before the plague. You basically, I can't remember the king's name, but there was a king that died, his son becomes the new king, and he's not that good of a king. His cousin then comes in thinking, I am going to save the country by basically trying to kill off the prince. So yeah, it's, that said, that is one of the major draw points of this game, is the story, and it's done very, very well in comparison to Skyrim, because I hated Skyrim.
And that is the main thing that I would say differs with Skyrim. Even its side quests are frivolous, and it knows it, and it's okay with that, because there might be these cool character moments, and that's what side quests are for. Interesting little quirky character moments. Games like New Vegas understood that, and that was why that did really well. Skyrim's biggest problem was that its main thing, I had to either choose between the Imperials, who I hate, or Ulfric Stormcloak, who I hate. At least in this, while you're forced down playing the same character, or playing a character, you have a story, you have a backstory, you meet your parents, you have a life. Even if you're taking him down a route of crime or a route of chastity, that's up to you. That's not my business. You are playing a person who exists in a world, and I think that's what works for it.
That always has been a good point for me. I always hated that choose your own character sometimes, because there just is no character previous to that point. There's a few elements there, a few games that have done really well previously, even like Knights of the Old Republic, where you actually had character before your character, and amnesia. So that.
But so it was tropey, but it worked because they'd established you in the universe.
And this game does really, really well with its story because you have character, and your character is actually really, really interesting to play as. And the world around is also interesting to explore and interesting in just to like change, because there are a few ways that you can actually change the story and so on.
So the biggest complaints would be the combat and the way it handles. Perhaps it isn't as good as it could have been, but you got to remember the size of the studio and the size of that. So there is some leeway to be given there, to be fair. Yeah, it's not like it's Bethesda money.
It's true. There's a few elements that I think even do better than Skyrim. It's like the weapon, the sword fighting and stuff, and even the dueling stuff. It's slower than Skyrim and maybe a little bit more painful that way, but there's a few elements.
But that's more realistic.
Yeah, they've added a more like realism and like almost guarding and stuff, which kind of slightly is overpowered, but I guess it's fine. And also stabbing is
Stabbing is a bit broken,
yeah. Stabbing is like no one slashes, everyone just stabs. But other than that, there are other few elements that are kind of really slightly bugged me, and well, bugged is the right term.
Yeah.
Because cameras just don't sometimes work. There's times when you're just like, having a conversation with an NPC, the camera points in a totally different opposite direction. Like, I'm supposed to be looking that direction, but I'm looking at this dog walking along the road.
Yeah, it's like the glare of cameras.
Basically.
And so, but again, like I say, you out of a Bethesda game with all that money, you don't expect it. Out of this with a smaller studio, there is a certain level of forgiveness to be given. It still seems like it's worth playing if you're into that heavy story-driven experience.
That, and I am really excited for the mods for this game, because Skyrim, it's very much a Skyrim kind of base game, and hopefully that draws a lot of the people that create
modded for Skyrim
to this kind of game, and hopefully there is good mod support too on PC. Fingers crossed in all those three, because that'll make the game 10 times better, like it did on Skyrim.
Do we watch on TV? We watch epic dramas, side-splitting comedies, quality video gaming coverage, New Game Plus 9:30 p.m. Wednesdays on Channel 31 Melbourne and Geelong. And of course, we watch sport. And we watch these competitions between the best in all of its flavours, from football to spelling to this.
The crowd goes wild and nails it, and he gets the 27-foot bumper, and Bo and Crystal McLaren are Eastern Regional Champions.
Ha 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 ha! Can we just spend the rest of the time watching these dog videos? No? No? Ugh, fine. More recently, we've seen esports included in this sporting roster. American networks have broadcast Counter-Strike and Street Fighter. Even Australia is dabbling with esports broadcasting, with local network 7 Mate taking time out of its rolling Big Bang Theory repeats to show Australia competing in the Overwatch World Cup last year. Now, this isn't the first time that competitive gaming has appeared on TV, although early showings weren't exactly stellar.
A megalithic meteorite is careering toward the Earth. You have 3 punches to destroy it and save the planet. A truly Herculean task.
My show is kicking with maximum hype. Say video power? Yeah, that's right. Word.
Now, I'm kind of obsessed with that last theme song. It's like they decided to hire a Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch cover band because they couldn't afford the $12 to hire the real thing. But why should we care whether or not esports is even shown on television? The esports legitimacy complex is a whole different topic altogether, but let's assume for the moment that the best thing for esports is mainstream attention. Televised broadcast is a fast way to get there. It will generate a bigger audience than could even be achieved through Twitch. Bigger audiences mean bigger and better tournaments, elevating the overall quality of play. To take this to the other logical extreme, if the AFL wasn't as big as it is, the 2017 Carlton Football Club would be considered a good team. And let's not sully this program with a lie like Carlton is a good football team. Besides, this way, if I spend the whole weekend watching Evo, I'll no longer have to lie to my colleagues and tell them that I spent the whole time doing something less stigmatized, like, I don't know, chronic masturbation. However, as much as I want to spend my weekend watching esports on the small screen, especially when it's unsullied by Twitch chat, I'll be the first to admit that most competitive gaming is unbroadcastable. The perfect examples of this are Dota 2 and League of Legends, 2 of the most popular esports titles. Unless you play these games, however, everything about them is incomprehensible.
Dead and BKB activated. Now there's the Julio. Universe. He blocked out 3. Now picks up the TP as well. He's not going to be here for this fight. Chaotic offering being dropped down immediately. BKB being activated by the Juggernaut. The disruption.
I'm confused watching that, and I've played Dota. You show that to someone who religiously watches The Big Bang Theory, and you'll blow their minds. They'll enter a fugue state when all they can say is bazinga. Well, more so than usual. Even a seemingly more accessible game like Counter-Strike Global Offensive is really less about the shooting and more about economy management. Think of it as being the perfect opposite of US elections, which should be about the economy, but all people care about are the guns. Even if you solve the accessibility problem though, there is still one massive hurdle esports has to get over, and that is public perception. People get strangely defensive when you label something non-physical as sport. It's particularly bad here in Australia, where we spend most of our time debating knife taxonomy. Take this clip, for instance, from Weekends Today, the show you watch when TV static is just a little bit too mentally stimulating. In March, the hosts had a discussion on whether esports should be included in the Olympics. 50% of the group reacted exactly as you'd expect.
Can I just make that very clear? This should not be an Olympic sport because it's not a sport.
I can have a spelling bee isn't a sport.
The only thing moving are thumbs. That is not a sport. It doesn't matter. That is entertainment, not sport.
Ah, yes. The age-old debate tactic of repeating your point over and over and over. It's why the world debate champion for the 5th year running continues to be these guys.
Versace, 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 whoa, Versace, 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 Versace.
By the way, that is a reference which is too dated for our younger audience and too new for the oldies. Why did I go with it? Still, this stigma will only go away with time and exposure to televised esports. To get to this point, tournament organisers are going to have to make some minor changes to the way esports is currently presented. Not just for TV's sake, but also to make it broadly more accessible. And I think they can start with 2 things. Firstly, they have to slow down the commentary. Get super shouty and fast during the hype moments, but also slow down to explain the significance of the smaller moments which led to the big play. It's the childish Gambino theory. You don't have to be a rap god all the time. You can still get a hit with a slow jam. And secondly, they need to give viewers a reason to care about these professional players. Tell the stories about these competitors. Get viewers emotionally invested in their fates. Even stepping away from the player portraits, viewers will get behind a team if they're held out as the underdog, the heel, or the perennial loser. Oh, hey Cloud9. These are just the starting steps for making esports more palatable for television. And even the tiniest push in this direction will build momentum, viewers, and the pedigree of esports we see generally. The next thing you know, you'll be bored senseless as the office bros spend all of Monday talking about the latest Hearthstone tournament. And once we hit that point, you'll know that esports has made it. Or we can just forget about this whole esports business and watch more dog jumping.
It's neck and neck on the near side. It's extremely salty who had them. Now here comes the whip it. Can it turn it over? Not going to get there though. Not going to get there. An extremely salty take it.
Ha 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 ha. Who needs esports when you have those cute adorable pup esports? And that is everything that has happened in the world ever.
Now, Konami are a classic video game studio responsible for games like Castlevania, cult classics like Suikoden. Also, you know, that big cult classic series that's huge in both Japan and the West, Metal Gear Solid. And Metal Gear is one of those international franchises that everyone's excited for. And then they announced a new Metal Gear game. And it's like, yeah, sweet. Except for the bit where Kojima's gone. He's doing some silly thing with Norman Reedus. And then no one else really stayed on. But then what we've done is we made it a survival game. And we've completely, basically removed everything that was to do with the canon story. So why is it called a Metal Gear game, Shane?
Oh, Metal Gear Acid. Oh, I know what you're talking.
But that was a good game.
Yeah, and it's probably, actually had some good people developing it.
Yeah.
But no, Metal Gear Survive.
Yes, it is definitely something.
It is something.
Look, let's be clear. Metal Gear Solid 5 had its problems. I love the series, everything about it. The Metal Gear Solid 5 game was awful. And if you say otherwise, I think you're basically just an apologist at this point. But what was not awful about the Metal Gear Solid 5 game was the gameplay itself. And that at least carries over to Metal Gear Survive.
That's probably basically because it's on the Fox engine,
Yes.
which is one of the most well-developed engines, like maybe not ever, but very well developed.
Yep.
And it like works really well with the like survival kind of gameplay.
Yep.
It's much more melee weapon heavy, which feels a little bit weird on the Fox engine, but there's some real cool things that you can actually do with it.
Yeah.
And it's still got that really cool like movement options with the humans and stuff like that.
Well, because that was always the thing. Like the physics weren't the problem. The physicality was never really the issue. It just comes down to what's driving that experience. And while that gameplay can carry it to a certain extent, I mean, why is it still called a Metal Gear game? Like, I think that's the biggest point.
That is indeed the biggest point, and probably the biggest weakness. Just that those first two words in its title is like if they just made it called Survive, or I don't know, anything else, how to. I know they can't do.
No, they can't do that. It's a different thing.
But no, Survive, just Survive. It would have came through a lot better, and maybe if you just focus a little bit on the lesson of the story, because yes, it does incorporate some Metal Gear elements, but it's really not that.
It's not
good.
like you get sucked through a black hole, and then like all this weird stuff happens. Now you're fighting zombies. Like you just can't win. Like I don't know. I think the core gameplay is survival based. It's about building your assets, building things similar to what basically the gameplay of Metal Gear 5 was. Let's be real.
It's like that, but then there's also more like elements of like actually like growing your own food, some water supply, cleaning
the water.
It's a little
bit State of Decay in that sense.
State of Decay, yeah, very much survival game. It's in its name. But the problem is there is a phantom pain there because it's almost like a limb's chopped off from the Metal Gear series.
People know what phantom pain means.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it really does seem like it's one of those things that is actually hampered by the name attached to it. I think in and of itself, the game isn't that bad, even if the story is absolute garbage.
Yeah.
The gameplay was never the problem with the Metal Gear, with the Fox engine, and I guess it's just going to be sad that it's always going to be relegated to soccer games from now on.
A game that I was a really big fan of, that I'm not actually a fan of the, source material, is Attack on Titan. The gameplay really fits well, and like the story fits well with the gameplay, because you're basically Spider-Man, except you also cut giants up into little pieces and stuff like that. That said, Attack on Titan 2 comes, and it really improves on things that didn't need to be improved, so it makes it even better experience. Jason?
Yes, it does, to an extent.
To an extent.
I think the gameplay, they find ways to make it less tedious than the previous one, so there's different ways to attack Titans to stop the advance of the Kyojins.
Yeah.
They have ways to do that make it interesting, make it more fun. The way they do certain things as part of the story makes sense and tie it all in together. But it's tough because basically you play Forrest Gump. Like you Forrest Gump your way into this. To explain, you end up in historical moments in the show that don't necessarily make sense. You Forrest Gump in your unnamed OC who happens to be in the background of everything that's happening. But the problem is this was already a series that really delves into its B characters.
Yeah.
So like how do you... I didn't notice you were there. I'm getting along... I'll make Connie now. Hey, hun. That's like... So it just doesn't work for this as well as it should. And yet, it is great fun and everything about it I really enjoy. It's fantastic.
OC characters have always been a problem with me. I haven't really enjoyed that many OC games like...
Dragonverse.
Xenoverse. Xenoverse. It kind of worked, but still like you felt like you were just, throwing into things and like whatever like that. It still doesn't really matter though, because like all you're doing really in the story, you're basically like... camera. You're basically the camera of the anime.
Correct.
Like you're the cameraman for the basically you're the drawing.
But the other thing is like obviously they have relationships. So you build up relationship points depending on how many missions you go on with them. You can actually give them gifts. You can ship them basically. I know, right? So it's like it's flick the bean fodder for a lot of people. I know. And so if you love Levi, you can give him gifts. If you love Eren, you can give him gifts. You know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. But then it also later on it actually has a role in the R&D side of it. So you actually increase attributes, all that kind of stuff. So it all ties into making your character strong and adding onto their skills. The more relationship points you have, the more skills you have, things like that. Which is great for when you're fighting, because obviously at the start you're going to do really well, but when you start getting later into the story, when you have these lots of abnormal Titans coming in, it's a lot tougher.
The one thing that I really noticed, actually, which surprised me, is that even though the movement in the first game was really well, they've just made it smoother and nicer. And like, you don't have to like sometimes reattach things. You can just hold the button and it goes where it should go, and it feels really nice just to move around. Like.
It's Spider-Maning it alone.
Yeah.
You know, like even just flinging through the air, it's fine. And so one of the new things is the enemies. If a Titan stares at you for too long, he gets into a rage, and then he will chase only after you. So that's where you need to use some of your leadership to get other people to help you to take them out. But you have to run. You can get them. So when they go for a dive, then you can just chop them while they're not looking. But if they're a large Titan, you haven't hurt them, you're in trouble. So you need to just run. But even the way that like you're looking away from the camera, like the camera is shooting through your head, and you can still understand where you're going. Like it's Spider-Man's really, really well. They have added new attack moves, so you can do a sneak attack where you zoom in on them using your telescope, and then you shoot straight at them and chop them. But if they catch you doing it, they instantly enrage. So it's the trade-off of if they turn around, I'm dead. If they don't, like it's thing. And now that they also find that they're also more prone to like jumping up and catching out of the air.
Yeah.
So I've had it happen a few times where I'm like, I'm away, and then this other one just out of nowhere just grabs me, and I'm like stabbing his fingers trying to get out. So if you enjoyed the first game, which I think was, like you say, if you didn't like the source material, it was probably the best anime game of that period. There's still a lot here for you, but it is going to be really for the hardcore fans to get into the shipping and like...
Oh, yeah, but like that's always like that. And there's still a fair amount of grinding.
Yes.
So you can, even if you're just like...
Rip tray. It's going to be a lot of grinding. So, yeah, there is so much to do in the game. There's so much fun to be had. The relationship stuff adds stuff. Honestly, I think if you enjoyed the first one and you thought the first one left you a little bit hoping for more, then this game will take all of that, improve it, and you don't even really have to focus on the relationship stuff too much if you don't want to. So Attack on Titan, basically an improvement in every way that I can think of.
So New Game Plus likes the anime video game. What a surprise.
Yeah, shocker. The reviews sounded really good, and Attack on Titan is definitely one of the heaviest animes I've ever seen. So I'm not surprised this really reflects the second season really well.
Like, I've only seen one episode, but even then I know that I'm in for a sad time if we want to stick with the series. So at least I've got other ways to get into the series, whether it be through the video game series or just getting sad and reading the manga.
Donald, what do you think about anime adaptations in video games?
They've gotten better recently. They've become more recently because like One Piece Burning Blood is a mainstay amongst New Game Plus crew, and we've recently touched on other anime adaptations, both good and bad, like Seven Deadly Sins.
It's interesting to say that like what we've been talking about is that Japan have suddenly realized that there's a huge weeb market in Australia, so they're bringing over those games that haven't been translated for the Western market in English now, so everyone can enjoy them.
Sure, it's a very limited audience, but my goodness, they're a dedicated
it's actually
audience.
bigger than you think, I think.
Yeah, and we're just saying like, with other franchises as well, not just anime adaptations, but things like Yakuza. But like speaking of gaming adaptations, though, like they've gotten generally better, haven't they? Because remember when when video games based on movies used to be terrible, but now we're getting video games based on TV shows, on books, and they are of stellar quality. And I'm just going to let you talk about Telltale for a little bit.
My favourite video game genre is the Telltale genre, and I'm not going to lie, it's something that I will spend days on end finishing title after title for it. I really feel that they have branched out into this incredibly engrossing narrative gameplay, but I will say that in the most recent games, the depth of choice decisions haven't really had much of a detriment to the developing of story. It's just sort of sad to see it all unfold. So I really love that, and I can't wait for hopefully Wolf Among Us 2, guys. If you're listening, bring it, deliver.
But meanwhile, what is the best Telltale game, and why is it The Walking Dead Season 1?
Clementine!
Oh boy!
Oh my God!
I need to decompress after that one.
I know.
Yeah, no, I kind of didn't need to decompress just thinking about that, which is perfect because we have reached the end of this episode of New Game Plus. Thank you very much for
you've enjoyed
watching.
it.
Yep. In the meantime, if you want to watch more New Game Plus, go to our website at www.newgameplus.tv.
Don't worry about Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, newgameplus.tv.
New Game Plus TV on all of our social media channels and, of course, our website. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining me, Megs.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, heaps.
No worries, and we'll see you next week.